Hello. Just wanted to share another out of body experience. This one was very early on in when I was trying to learn how to get out of body. So I had already been getting sleep paralysis and experiencing it a little bit there. But this was like my very first one. I consider like I almost achieved out of body. So what I mean is I fell asleep or lost consciousness for a brief second before I actually transitioned into it, and I ended up waking up out of body in a place, but I was completely lucid and vivid. The environment was very vivid, and I felt like my true self when I was there. So I consider it one of my very first early out of body experiences. Before I actually get into the details of the actual experience, I do want to share some things that have been helping me lately stay on a path of getting out of body and having vivid dreams and stuff like that, because the past few weeks I have been getting a little bit stressed out and let little things bother me, and that can really disrupt the whole process if you're just letting thoughts creep up in your mind and kind of disrupt your actual flow of thought. I watched this video the other week, and this guy was talking about a technique to fall asleep faster. And what he ends up doing is he creates like some sort of rhythm in his brain. But what he was actually doing, he was like tapping his legs just to create like a simple rhythm like this. And he would do this for about 3 to 5 minutes. And then once he had a good flow of that rhythm going, because our brains really enjoy repetition, so you repeat that rhythm over and over, and then he would slow it down. So I tried that out, and I found it really beneficial for me just to kind of relax and let go of anxiety and stuff like that. Another thing, I just kind of remembered like to have faith in my own abilities, and not try so hard, and also not to like expect too much or be like too like in too much anticipation for myself to actually get out of body. Like last night especially, I laid down and I just kind of remember the thought that I'm gonna fall asleep. Like it happens every single night. I fall asleep. So I kind of sometimes get worked up and think like I need to do this or do that to relax myself, but I naturally do that eventually anyway when I'm about to go to bed. And it's just more about being aware when I'm about to fall asleep and then do my transition techniques then. So just kind of was overthinking, over trying, letting little things bother me and not being more of like an observer of thought. Instead, I was trying to control too much of the situation and my own thoughts and stuff like that. So, for the actual experience itself, like I said, when I this was when early on I was really trying to learn how to transition from mind awake, body asleep state, so physical form to non-physical form, and stay conscious the whole time. This specific time, I lost consciousness for a split second in my bed when I was falling asleep, and then I woke up at my parents' old house where I grew up, and I was non-physical. And for a second, I was a little delirious, kind of like not knowing what was going on, and then I snapped out of it real quickly because there was a lot of people around right away. And so I got up, and over my knees this person, man, was like over top of me, and I instantly got like a really bad feeling about it. I was like, this is weird, I don't want anything to do with this. So I just kind of like jumped up like, all right, I got to get out of here. And that was the moment where I realized I was non-physical, just because I could tell it was like weird and I didn't want anything to do with it. So I popped up. Like I said, there was people around. It was kind of like a lot of people around. And I was in a hallway in the upstairs. And everything was very vivid. Like the walls, it was the same exact structure for the most part as the house I grew up in. So after I got up, I went downstairs and into the kitchen. So I walked downstairs, go in the kitchen. Everything's the same again, and there's more people around. There's nothing like crazy notable that was popping out. Um, For the most part, it would just look like my parents' kitchen. And the house, I mean, I could describe what that looks like, but I mean, who really cares? It's just like a typical house. Um, there's a back door that has a deck, and outside it was daylight out. So that was the whole setting of the thing. So I go through the kitchen area and I open the door, I go out to the deck, and I look outside, and it's a pool there, which there's a pool there in real life. And past the pool, there's a big, like, half an acre yard with a fence and a shed and more people. So at the time, I kind of was just like experiencing the whole thing and taking it in. But once I woke up later, my first thought of like what was going on, because there was other people around, seemed kind of like to me like it was like some kind of out of body training grounds for newbies. And I know that that's like kind of a funny thought, but that's just like what it kind of felt like for me. It just was a lot of people like running around, kind of playing. Everyone was like in a good mood for the most part. So my take of that is that when I initially woke up, I was in like a little bit of a sketchy situation, and that was like the fearful side of me trying to like keep me back and like from trying to actually explore the rest of the beauty that was going on right one room away and outside. So, like I said, it was daylight out, people running around, and I remember looking up at the sky, and I actually saw the earth and the moon. I didn't see the sun, very like far in the distance in the sky. So that was like kind of interesting and weird. Like I don't know why I saw the earth and the moon like that. And they were very close to each other. Like like this far apart if you were to think of it like that. And then I looked around some other spots in the sky and I saw like other planets also far away, and it was just really interesting. That's one of the things I love to do when I'm out of body, is just look up at the sky and see what's going on. So then after that, I kind of just had a thought like, hey, since I'm out of body for the first one of the first times, why don't I try to fly? Because that's like a typical thing. Like, all right, I'm out of body. I can do whatever I want. Why don't I try to fly? And so that was my thought. And I remember before trying it, this older man caught my attention, and he was looking at me, and I could just, through my intuition, I could tell he had some sort of message for me. So I looked at him, and there wasn't any words exchanged. It's more like mental thought exchanged. And he looked at me, he said something along the lines of, flight comes from the lower half of your body. And I had no idea what he meant at the time. I just kind of brushed it off like, okay. So then I continued on, and I was going to try and fly. And as all this is going on, it seems like the amount of people or beings or people that are taking, or beings that are taking the form of people, I don't really know, just kept getting more and more. So, and there wasn't anything bad going on. Like I said, everyone seemed to be like having a good time and just kind of like going with the flow of the environment and there for each other, but themselves at the same time. And then, so I go up, back up to the deck area because I was by the pool when the old man was talking to me and when I was looking at the sky. And I start to climb onto the roof of the house. There's like a little awning above the back door. So I climb up onto there and I go to try to jump or try to fly for the first time. And I recall specifically being there, kind of in like a position like this, like Spider-Man type position maybe. And I look to my left and I see like three people with me. And I look back to my right and I look back left again and there's like 10 people with me. So I don't know what that was about either. But basically from there, I try to take off and fly. So I jump up like that. And as I jump up, I stretch my arms out like I'm Superman. And I jump really high in the air. but I kind of lose control a little bit, and I just fall back to the ground and land on the deck, and I didn't fly. I just jumped really high. So then I'm like, all right, let me gear up. Let me try this a second time. So then the second time, before I take off for the jump, I think like I'm gonna give this everything I got. So again, I jump like as hard as I can and take off like Superman, and I go a lot higher, but then I reach a limit and I kind of like stop there for a second and I free fall down. And since I was so much higher this time, I got a little bit nervous because I was free falling and I was gonna hit the ground. I saw how I was gonna hit the ground, and I didn't know what was gonna happen. So I got a little bit anxious, like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? So then, as I'm falling, and I get maybe like 50 feet from the ground, I spot my brother on the ground, and he doesn't say anything. He's just like looking at me. I don't know what that's all about. Maybe he just offering me comfort in a moment to realize like everything's okay, like nothing bad's gonna happen. And right before I hit the ground, I kind of shoot back out of like my body again, like my spirit form shoots out. So I go into like a third person view for a second, and I didn't see my body falling. I just saw the impact on the ground, and it just turned into this like green or bluish mist. Um, I can't remember the exact color. I think it was like a greenish, hazy mist. And that just like splatters, and that's it. I end up looking at the mist for a second, like kind of confused because I got shot out, and it was a little confusing because I ended up in like a third person view, but I was already out of body. So just being a little confused about what just happened, I end up waking up physically, and that concluded one of my favorite out of body experiences because it was so early on and it was simple. There wasn't anything like crazy profound that happened, and I didn't have like a specific game plan going into it. And it wasn't the longest either, but it's one of the most vivid I've ever had and one of the most detailed I do remember to this day. And it was about maybe like a year and a half ago, something like that. So, I mean, that was it. Just a little experience I wanted to share. If anybody has like any questions or wants to talk about their own experiences or are trying to get out of body themselves or just interested in lucid dreaming and stuff like that in general, let me know in the comments. Blah blah blah. I love talking about all this stuff with people and trying to help other people and just share experiences and stuff like that. So that's all I got for you today. Peace.